First, President Biden is urging all American citizens to leave Ukraine as troops there prepare for a possible Russian invasion.
He warned there's no way the U.S. military would be able to rescue Americans after an attack begins. Russia continues to insist it has no intention of invading Ukraine despite a massive military buildup at the country's borders. The president is speaking with the transatlantic leaders today to discuss next steps. CBS News' Natalie Brand has more.
President Biden emphasized his warning to American citizens living in Ukraine. The time to get out is now.
We're dealing with one of the largest armies in the world. This is a very different situation, and things could go crazy quickly.
The president told NBC News' Lester Holt that he will not send U.S. troops into Ukraine to rescue Americans if Russia invades.
That's a world war. When Americans and Russians start shooting at one another, we're in a very different world than we've ever been in.
The White House says President Biden is hosting a conference call with world leaders to discuss Russia's continued buildup of military forces along Ukraine's border.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken says the State Department is drawing down personnel from the U.S. Embassy in Ukraine because of what he calls troubling signs of Russian escalation.
We're in a window when an invasion could begin at any time. And to be clear, that includes during the Olympics.
Outside the U.S. Embassy in Kyiv, residents of Ukraine were mixed about Russia's next move. This professor says he believes it's 50-50 whether an invasion will happen. As new Russian forces arrive near the border, diplomatic talks are continuing as well. But a key sticking point has been NATO's expansion east. Ukraine is not a member of NATO. Russia wants to keep it that way, but NATO has said closing membership is a non-starter, and it's beefing up its defenses in nearby member countries.
We are also assessing whether we should adjust our more longer-term presence in the eastern part of the alliance.
A U.S. Stryker squadron from Germany arrived in Romania Friday. Natalie Brand, CBS News, the White House.
CBS News senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe joins us with more. Ed, we've been learning more about the Biden administration increasingly concerned about Russia and how it could take military action against Ukraine. Why is that?
Well, good to see you guys. The first indication we got was the Secretary of State's comments that you saw in Natalie's report. He's traveling in Australia and said now that there's concern that Russia could, in fact, commit some kind of military action during the Olympics. We're at the halfway point of those games in China, so another week to go. We also learned this morning that last night the president convened a White House Situation Room meeting with top security advisors to discuss the ongoing Russian military deployments. And there's word that, for example, now Russia has essentially blockaded parts of the Black Sea, issued navigational warnings to elements of the Black Sea that are near Ukraine, starting on Sunday for all of next week. So that's one more move that is sort of putting Russian military equipment there in and around Ukraine, encircling it, and that is what's giving American officials so much concern. White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan is expected to brief reporters later today as well, likely to get a lot of questions about this, and probably will lay out again the specific concerns they have. What intelligence is the U.S. seeing? Why suddenly this intensification of the concern and amplifying it at a time when European leaders are not necessarily as convinced this could happen is unclear, and we'll see if he shares any more specifics later.
Ed, President Biden convened a virtual call Friday morning with world leaders this morning. While they universally objected to Putin's military buildup, they've got some differing views among them about his ultimate intentions. So where are the concerns here?
Yeah, well, and this is why these meetings have been happening at a more frequent pace. You know, the president earlier this week spoke, for example, with President Macron, who had gone to see President Putin in Moscow. He has had similar conversations with Ukraine's President Zelensky, with other European leaders. The German chancellor was here earlier in the week as well for the same reason. The idea being that as long as the United States, NATO, the European Commission, these European allies are all sort of on the same page in terms of the concern and the information sharing, then if or when Russia invades, the hope is that there will be a unified response from the Western world to either retaliate through sanctions or whatever other steps have to be taken. But this call includes the leaders of Canada, Germany, France, the United Kingdom, Italy, NATO, the European Commission, all of them, again, trying to get on the same page about this. What is it that the U.S. is seeing that the Europeans aren't? Why are the Europeans reading it differently than the Americans? We haven't been able to get good specific reasons that they'll discuss in a reportable way. But certainly, now it seems just in the last 24 hours or so, the Americans are seeing something that has compelled them to have the Secretary of State speak out, the President to warn Americans yet again it's time to get out, and the National Security Advisor to come talk to reporters about it in a little bit.
All right, Ed, thanks for keeping us up to date. It's always good to see you as well.
You too.